The lights on the bridge of the Eternal Vigil flickered as another explosion rocked the massive warship. Admiral Park Delhan gripped the railing and watched the battlefield through the main screen. Everywhere he looked, human ships were burning. His ships. His people. "Admiral, we have lost contact with the Braveheart and the Iron Will," reported Captain Yunhana from her position at the tactical station. Her voice was steady, but Dohan could see the fear in her eyes. They both knew what losing contact meant. 2 more ships gone. 2 more crews dead. The Velthari Empire had come with everything they had. Thousands of warships poured through the jump gates, their weapons tearing through space like angry fire. The border world of Kalos 7 was supposed to be a simple defense post. Nobody expected the Velthari to attack with such numbers. Dohan had sent the emergency signal to the Galactic Unity Council 6 hours ago. 12 alien races had sworn to protect each other. 12 races had promised that an attack on one was an attack on all. Earth had been part of this alliance for 200 years. They had given soldiers technology and resources to keep peace across the stars. Now, where were they? Any response from the council? Dohan asked, though he already knew the answer. "Nothing, sir," Hana replied. Ambassador Beijisu is still trying to reach them. On the distant station of Nexus Prime, Ambassador Beijisu stood before the council chamber with tears running down her face. She had been begging for 3 hours. Her voice was broken from shouting. "Please," she said to the 12 alien leaders who sat in their comfortable chairs. 40,000 humans are dying right now. You promised to help us. We are your allies." High Counselor Melvik of the Urani looked down at her with his 4 cold eyes. His gray skin showed no emotion. His thin lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "The Council has voted," he said. "We cannot risk our fleets against the Velthari. The humans will provide valuable time for us to prepare our defenses. You are sending them to die." Jisu screamed. "Humans are expendable," Melvik replied calmly. "Your kind breeds quickly. You will recover. Our species cannot take such losses." The other council members nodded their heads. Some looked away from Jisu, unable to meet her eyes. But none of them spoke against Melvik. None of them stood up for humanity. Jisu fell to her knees. 200 years of friendship. 200 years of sacrifice. And this was how they repaid Earth. Back at Kalos 7, the battle had become a slaughter. Admiral Park Doan watched as the Starhammer exploded in a ball of white fire. 300 crew members gone in an instant. He had known the captain since their academy days. They had shared drinks and stories just last week. "Sir, we have received a message from the council," an officer called out. Hope flickered in Dohan's chest for just a moment. Then he saw the officer's face go pale. "Read it," Dohan ordered. The officer's hand shook as he held the datapad. "The Galactic Unity Council has determined that military assistance to the human fleet at Kalos 7 is not strategically viable. Human forces are advised to delay enemy advancement for as long as possible. The Council thanks humanity for their sacrifice." Silence fell over the bridge. Every officer stopped what they were doing. Every eye turned to Admiral Park Dohan. He stood very still. His hands slowly closed into fists. For a long moment, he said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet and cold. "They have abandoned us." Captain Yunhana slammed her fist against her console. "Those cowards! We gave them everything." Dohan turned to face his crew. These men and women had trusted him. They had followed him into battle because they believed the council would protect them. Now they were all going to die because of alien politics. "All ships," Dohan said into the fleet communication channel. "This is Admiral Park. The council has betrayed us. No help is coming." He paused to let the words sink in. "But we are human. We do not run. We do not surrender. If we die today, we die fighting. Make the enemy pay for every inch of space. Make them remember what it costs to face humanity. Across the battlefield, human ships that had been retreating suddenly turned around. Damaged vessels that should have fled instead charged forward. The Valkyrie had expected easy prey. They found lions instead. Captain Yoon Hana led 17 ships in a desperate charge through enemy lines. Her vessel, the Resolute Dawn, took heavy damage, but she kept fighting. She watched the Eternal Vigil surrounded by enemy ships, its weapons firing in every direction. "Admiral, you need to escape," she shouted into the communication channel. "Get those ships out of here, huh?" Dahan's voice came back, calm as always. "Someone needs to tell Earth what happened. Someone needs to make sure they remember." An explosion cut off his words. The Eternal Vigil broke apart in a massive ball of fire. Admiral Park Dawn, the greatest commander Earth had ever known, was gone. Hana screamed his name, but there was nothing she could do. Enemy ships were closing in from every direction. She had to make a choice. Stay and die, or run and remember. She chose to remember. The Resolute Dawn and 16 other ships jumped away from Calo 7. Behind them, the remaining human vessels fought until the very end. Not a single one surrendered. Not a single one begged for mercy. When the battle was over, 40,000 humans were dead. The Valkyrie had won, but they had paid a terrible price. Nearly a third of their invasion fleet was destroyed. As Hana's ships limped toward Earth, she received one final transmission. It was weak and broken, coming from the wreckage of the Eternal Vigil. Admiral Park Dohan's voice, barely a whisper. "Remember what they did. Remember and never forgive." The message ended. Hana played it again and again as she traveled home. She would remember. Earth would remember. And one day, the galaxy would learn what happened when humanity was betrayed. The stars watched in silence as 17 ships carried the truth home. The Council had made their choice. Now humanity would make theirs. 5 years had passed since the massacre at Calo 7. 5 years since the galaxy abandoned humanity. And for 5 years, Earth had been completely silent. No trade ships left human space. No communication signals went out. No ambassadors attended council meetings. The jump gates leading to Earth's solar system went dark. Any alien vessel that tried to enter was turned away by automated weapons platforms. The galaxy assumed Earth had collapsed. They believed humanity was too broken to recover from such a devastating loss. Some council members even laughed about it in their private meetings. They were wrong, deep beneath the surface of Earth. In a facility that stretched across 3 continents, Director Kang Tai-woo stood before a wall of screens. Each screen showed a different project. Weapons factories, training camps, shipyards hidden inside hollowed-out asteroids. Millions of workers moving like a single organism with one purpose: revenge. How are we progressing? Tai-woo asked without turning around. Dr. Shin Mai-rei stepped forward, holding a tablet filled with data. She was the lead scientist of Project Phoenix, the program that would make humanity unstoppable. Her eyes had dark circles from years of sleepless nights, but they burned with determination. "The new reactor design is complete," she reported. "It produces 10 times more power than anything the Council has. Our weapons testing shows we can cut through their best shields like paper. And the engines," she allowed herself a small smile, "we can cross the galaxy in half the time they can." Tai-woo nodded slowly. After the betrayal, humanity had captured several Valkyrie ships and recovered technology from the destroyed Council vessels. They took everything apart. They studied every piece. And then they made it better. What about the ships themselves? Tai-woo asked. General Cho Sun-woo answered this question. He was a massive man with a scarred face and cold eyes. He had lost his entire family at Calo 7. His wife had been a doctor on one of the medical ships. His 2 sons had been young officers serving their first mission. "We currently have 1,200 warships ready for battle," Sun Wu said. "By the end of next year, we will have 2,000. Plus 50 dreadnoughts." "Dreadnoughts?" Tai Wu raised an eyebrow. Sun Wu gestured to one of the screens. It showed a ship unlike anything ever built. It was enormous, nearly 3 kilometers long. Its hull was covered in weapon platforms. Its engines glowed with blue fire. "We call them planet killers," Sun Wu said. "One of these could defeat the entire Irani defense fleet alone." In another part of the facility, Vice Admiral Yoon Hana walked through rows of young cadets training for war. She had been promoted after returning from Calo 7. The 17 ships she saved made her a hero. But she did not feel like one. Every night, she heard Admiral Park Dawn's final words in her dreams. Remember what they did. Remember and never forgive. She remembered. Every single day. "Vice Admiral." A young officer ran up to her. His name was Im Hyun-sik, and he was one of the few other survivors of Calo 7. Burn scars covered half his face, a gift from the Velthari weapons that nearly killed him. "The new pilot program results are in." Hannah took the report and read it quickly. The pilots were exceptional. Young men and women who had grown up with hatred in their hearts. Trained since childhood for this moment. Lieutenant No Ji-young scored highest again. Hyun-sik noted. Hana looked across the training floor and spotted Ji-young in a flight simulator. She was barely 20 years old, but she flew like a demon. Her father had died at Calo 7. Her mother had died of grief a year later. Ji-young had nothing left but her skills and her anger. So many of them were like that. A generation raised on stories of betrayal. A generation raised narration. A generation raised on stories of children who grew up knowing that the galaxy wanted them dead. They did not need to be convinced to fight. They were born for it. On the surface of Earth, cities had transformed. Parks became training grounds. Factories ran day and night. Schools taught engineering, tactics, and survival alongside regular subjects. Every citizen knew their role. Every person contributed to the great project. Earth had become a world of warriors. In her laboratory, Dr. Shin Mai-rei worked on her greatest creation yet. She called it the Vengeance, the first of the Dreadnought class. It sat in a massive underground hangar, surrounded by thousands of workers putting on the final pieces. She remembered her younger brother. He had been a communications officer on the Eternal Vigil. He had been one of the first to die when the ship was destroyed. She kept his picture on her desk as she worked. "This is for you," she whispered every night before she went to sleep. "This is for all of them." Director Kang Tai-woo called a meeting of all department heads. They gathered in a secure room deep underground, surrounded by screens showing Earth's progress. 5 years, Tai-woo began. 5 years of silence. "The Council thinks we are dead. The Velthari believe they broke us. Even our old trading partners have forgotten we exist." He paused and looked at each face in the room. "But we know the truth. We are not dead. We are not broken. We have been preparing." General Cho Sung-woo stood up. "Our soldiers are ready. 3 million trained warriors. The best equipped and most motivated fighting force in galactic history." Dr. Shin Mai-rei spoke next. "Our technology surpasses anything the Council has. They have been standing still for centuries. We have been running." Vice Admiral Yoon Hana finished the reports. "The fleet is nearly complete. When we emerge, the galaxy will face a power they cannot possibly defeat." Tai-woo smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a man who had waited 5 years for this moment. 2 more years, he said. 2 more years of building. 2 more years of silence. And then we will remind the galaxy What happens when they betray humanity? In the hangar, the Vengeance waited. Its hull gleamed under the artificial lights. Its weapon systems hummed with deadly energy. It was beautiful and terrible, a monument to human anger and human genius. The silent years were almost over. The stars had no idea what was coming. 7 years after the betrayal, the galaxy had moved on. The Velthari Empire had been pushed back after years of fighting. The Galactic Unity Council celebrated their victory at every opportunity. They built statues to their heroes. They wrote songs about their bravery. They never mentioned the 40,000 humans who died at KALLOS-7. On the station Nexus Prime, the Council was hosting the Centennial Peace Summit. Leaders from all 12 races gathered in the Grand Hall. Flags hung from the ceiling. Musicians played pleasant music. Servants carried expensive drinks on golden trays. High Counselor Melvik of the Irani stood at the center of it all, accepting congratulations from everyone around him. His gray skin had gotten paler with age, but his 4 eyes still held the same cold pride. He had led the council to victory, they said. He had saved the galaxy. He never lost sleep over the humans. Why would he? They were gone, forgotten, unimportant. In a small room far from the celebration, former Ambassador Beijisu sat alone. She had resigned after the betrayal. She could not stand to look at the council members who had sentenced her people to death. For 7 years, she had lived in quiet shame, unable to return to Earth, unable to forget what happened. Her communication device beeped. A message had arrived from an unknown source. She opened it with shaking hands. The words made her heart stop. "Watch the stars. We are coming home." She ran to the window and looked out at the darkness of space. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, in the distance, she saw lights. Hundreds of lights. Thousands of lights. Ships jumping out of hyperspace, appearing from nothing like ghosts from a nightmare. The alarm started screaming across Nexus Prime. In the Grand Hall, the celebration stopped. Council members looked at each other in confusion as security officers rushed past them. Melvik demanded to know what was happening. Nobody could give him an answer. Vice Admiral Yoon Hana stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching the chaos unfold on the station. She was no longer the frightened captain who had fled. Kalos 7. 7 years of preparation had turned her into something hotter, colder, more dangerous. "Open a channel to all frequencies," she ordered to Commander M. Hyunsik. The scarred survivor, who now served as her tactical officer, nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Hannah's voice went out across the entire system. Every ship, every station, every planet heard her words. "This is Vice Admiral Yoon Hana of the United Earth Fleet. We have not come to negotiate. We have not come to beg. We have come to remind you what happens when you abandon humanity." On Nexus Prime, Melvik pushed through the crowd to reach a communication terminal. His hands trembled as he tried to send a message to the human fleet. "This is High Counselor Melvik," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "There must be some misunderstanding. The Council is prepared to discuss any concerns you may have. We can offer compensation, trade agreements, anything you want." The only response was silence. Outside the station, the Earth fleet arranged itself in perfect formation. 2,000 warships of various sizes. 50 massive dreadnoughts that made Council ships look like toys. Fighter squadrons that moved with impossible speed and precision. Lieutenant No Ji-yong sat in her fighter, waiting for orders. She was no longer a trainee. She was the leader of Shadow Squadron, the best pilots in the fleet. Through her cockpit window, she could see an unmanned asteroid station that the Council used for weapons testing. Shadow Squadron. "You have permission to demonstrate." Hana's voice came through the communication channel. Ji-yong smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Shadow Squadron, follow my lead," she said. Her fighter shot forward, followed by 11 others. They moved toward the asteroid station like arrows. The council members watched from Nexus Prime as the small human fighters approached the station. Some of them laughed nervously. What could tiny fighters do against a fortified station? Then the fighters opened fire. The weapons they carried were nothing like what the council had seen before. Beams of pure energy cut through the station's shields like they were not there. The entire structure exploded in less than 3 seconds. The laughter died in the council members' throats. Impossible, Melvik whispered. That station had military-grade shields. On the Vengeance, Commander Mhunsik allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They are finally afraid, he said quietly. Good, they should be. Hannah nodded but did not celebrate. There was too much work to do. Too many people to answer for what happened at KALLOS-7. Ambassador Bai Jisu found her way to the station's docking bay. She did not know what she expected to find there. Maybe she hoped the human fleet would take her home. Maybe she just wanted to see her people again. A shuttle from the Vengeance landed in the bay. The door opened and soldiers in black armor marched out. They moved with perfect discipline, their weapons ready but not raised. Then, a figure stepped out behind them. A man in an admiral's uniform, his hair gray and his face lined with years of hardship. Jisu's heart nearly stopped dead. It was Admiral Park Dawn. That's impossible, she breathed. You died at Kalos 7. Dohan walked toward her, his boots clicking on the metal floor. I nearly did, he said. A Tanlori merchant ship found me floating in the wreckage. They saved my life and kept me hidden while I recovered. I have spent the last 7 years watching Earth rebuild from the shadows. Tears ran down Jisu's face. I tried to save you. I begged them to help. They would not listen. I know, Dawn said gently. None of this is your fault. You fought for us when no one else would. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Now it is time to come home. Across the Nexus system, council ships were trying to flee. They did not get far. Human vessels blocked every jump point, every escape route. There was nowhere to run. Melvi, EK finally understood the truth. The humans had not come to negotiate. They had not come to make threats. They had come to collect a debt that was 7 years overdue. And the galaxy was about to learn that humanity always collected its debts. The campaign began 3 days after the emergence. Earth's fleet split into 12 battle groups, one for each race that had voted to abandon humanity. Admiral Park Dohan commanded the overall operation from the Eternal Vigil 2, a ship built from the salvaged pieces of his original flagship. The Urani were first. They had led the betrayal. They would lead the punishment. Vice Admiral Yun Hana commanded the assault on Urani Prime. She brought 200 warships and 5 dreadnoughts to their home world. The Urani Defense Fleet, once considered one of the strongest in the galaxy, numbered only 60 vessels. They never stood a chance. Hannah watched from the bridge of the Vengeance as human weapons tore through enemy shields. Urani ships exploded one after another, their crews dying before they could even return fire. The battle lasted 6 hours. By the end, not a single Urani military vessel remained. Admiral, one of her officers, reported, "The enemy fleet is destroyed. Their orbital defense platforms are offline. The planet is defenseless." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew what they could do. One order from Hannah, and Urani Prime would burn. Billions of aliens who had cheered when humanity died at Kalos 7. Billions of creatures who had celebrated their betrayal. Hannah closed her eyes. She thought about Admiral Park Doan's final message from 7 years ago. Remember what they did. Remember and never forgive. She remembered. She would never forgive. But she also remembered something else. She remembered that she was human. Target only military installations, government buildings, and shipyards. Hana ordered. Avoid population centers. Civilian casualties are to be minimized. Some officers looked surprised. Others nodded with respect. Commander Im Hyun-sik understood immediately. We are not like them, he said quietly. No, Hana agreed. We are not. The bombardment of Arani Prime was precise and devastating. Every military base was destroyed. Every weapon factory was reduced to dust. The great government palace where Melvik had given his orders crumbled into ruins. But the city survived. The hospitals remained standing. The schools were untouched. General Cho Sun-woo broadcast a message to the entire planet. His voice was cold but controlled. People of Arani Prime, your military is gone. Your leaders have fled. But you are not our enemies. Your rulers chose to abandon humanity to death. Your rulers will answer for their crimes. You will be left to rebuild in peace. Remember this mercy. Remember that humans could have destroyed you completely. And remember that we chose not to. Across the galaxy, the message spread. The council races had expected genocide. They had expected the same cruelty they would have shown. Instead, they saw something they did not understand. Strength controlled by conscience. Power limited by principle. It confused them. It scared them even more than destruction would have. The campaign continued for 3 months. One by one, council worlds fell before Earth's fleet. Military power was crushed. Political leaders were captured. But everywhere, civilians were spared. Some races tried to fight. The Vorn assembled their entire fleet and challenged the humans to open battle. They were destroyed in 4 hours. Pikethany attempted to hide their leaders underground. Human soldiers found them anyway, using technology that could see through solid rock. Other races surrendered immediately. The Delari, who had saved Admiral Park Do-won's life and who had never supported the betrayal, opened their borders without resistance. They asked only to be judged fairly for their small act of courage. The Talori showed kindness when no one else would, Do-won declared. They will not be punished. They will be remembered as friends. Finally, all 12 council leaders were captured. High Councilor Melvik was found hiding in a bunker beneath his ruined palace. He screamed and begged as human soldiers dragged him out into the daylight. The trial was held aboard the Vengeance. It was broadcast across every planet, every station, every ship in the galaxy. Billions of aliens watched as humans presented their evidence. Communications logs showed that the Council knew exactly what would happen at Cal 7. They had calculated how long humans would survive. They had planned to use human deaths as a shield while they prepared their own defenses. They had laughed about it in private meetings. The humans will fight like animals, one recorded message showed Melvik saying. They always do. Let them die buying us time. Their lives are worth less than our convenience. Ambassador Beijisu served as the chief prosecutor. For 7 years, she had carried the guilt of failure. Now she finally had a chance to speak for the dead. 40,000 humans died at Kalo 7, she said, her voice strong and clear. Fathers and mothers, sons and daughters. They trusted you. They believed in the Alliance. And you betrayed them without hesitation. She looked directly at Melvik. You called us expendable. You said our lives were worth less than yours. Today, the galaxy will see the truth about who is truly worthless. The council leaders tried to defend themselves. Some claimed they had no choice. Others blamed each other. Melvik insisted that the decision was logical and correct. We saved trillions of lives, he argued. A few thousand humans were an acceptable sacrifice. Admiral Park Do-won stood up. The room fell silent. Every eye turned to the man who had survived the massacre, who had returned from the dead to demand justice. You did not save lives, Do-won said calmly. You traded them. You decided that human blood was cheaper than alien blood. You made that calculation without asking us, without warning us, without giving us any chance to prepare. He paused. Now you will face the consequences. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all charges. The sentence surprised everyone. The council leaders were not executed. They were not imprisoned in comfort. Instead, each was transported to a barren, lifeless world at the edge of explored space. They were given basic supplies and left alone. This is what you gave us at Kalos 7, Hana announced as the sentence was carried out. Abandonment, isolation, the knowledge that nobody is coming to help. Live with that feeling for the rest of your days. Malvik's final transmission before he was cut off from all communication was a scream of rage and fear. Then there was only silence. The old council was finished. The old order was dead. And from its ashes, something new was about to rise. 2 years had passed since the emergence. The galaxy looked very different now. The old Galactic Unity Council existed only in history books and bitter memories. In its place stood something new, something built on the ashes of betrayal and the blood of the fallen. They called it the Stellar Alliance. The founding ceremony took place. On a rebuilt Nexus Prime, representatives from 37 races gathered in the Great Hall, which had been redesigned by human architects. Gone were the elevated platforms that had once placed council members above everyone else. Now everyone sat at the same level. Everyone had an equal voice. Admiral Park Dawn stood before the assembly. His hair had gone completely white in the years since Kalos 7, but his eyes still held the same fire. He wore a simple uniform with no medals, no decorations. He did not need symbols to show his authority. "We did not fight for power," he said to the gathered representatives. "We did not destroy the council to become the new rulers of the galaxy. We fought because we were abandoned. We built an army because we had to. We showed our strength because it was the only language the old order understood." He paused and looked around the room. Human officers stood alongside alien diplomats. Former enemies sat next to new friends. It was a strange sight, but also a hopeful one. Today, we choose a different path. The Stellar Alliance is not a human empire. It is a true partnership. Every race has equal rights. Every planet has representation. And most importantly, every member has protection. His voice grew harder. When one of us is attacked, all of us respond. This is not a suggestion. This is not a vote that can be ignored. This is the foundation of everything we build from today forward. The representatives nodded and cheered. They had seen what happened to the council. They had watched human ships destroy military installations while protecting civilian lives. They understood that humanity could have ruled through fear alone. The fact that they chose partnership instead earned respect that fear never could. Vice Admiral Yoon Hana did not attend the ceremony. She had a different mission now. Her new flagship, the Second Chance, led a fleet of exploration vessels into uncharted space. The council had been too afraid to explore beyond their known territories. Humanity had no such fear. There were new worlds to discover, new species to meet, new wonders to witness. Any signals from the probe network? Hannah asked her bridge crew. 3 promising systems ahead, an officer reported. One has a habitable planet. The others have resources we have never seen before. Hannah smiled. For so long, she had been defined by war and revenge. Now she could be something else. An explorer, a pioneer, someone who built instead of destroyed. "Set course for the habitable planet," she ordered. "Let us see what the universe has been hiding from us." Back on Earth, Dr. Shin Mai-rei stood before the gates of the Prometheus Institute. It was a massive campus of laboratories and schools built on the site where her old underground facility had been. The weapons factories were gone. In their place stood research centers dedicated to medicine, agriculture, and energy. The technology that humanity had created for war was now being adapted for peace. Engines that once powered dreadnoughts now moved cargo ships faster than ever before. Weapons that could destroy shields now healed damaged cells in hospitals. Everything they had built for revenge found new purpose. Dr. Shin, an alien scientist, approached her nervously. He was from the Kethany race, one of the species that had supported the betrayal. I want to thank you for allowing me to study here. After what my people did, I expected humans to hate us forever. Myri looked at the young scientist for a long moment. She thought about her brother, dead at Calo 7. She thought about all the years of anger and pain. Then she thought about the future. Hatred is easy, she finally said. Building something better is hard. We chose the hard path. I hope you will help us walk it. The Kethany scientist bowed deeply, tears in his eyes. I will, he promised. I will spend my life trying to be worthy of this chance. On the memorial world of Calo 7, Commander Emheen Sik had found peace at last. He had retired from military service after the reckoning. There was no more war to fight, no more enemies to face. The scars on his face had faded to pale lines, but the memories remained as sharp as ever. He spent his days tending a garden in the shadow of the memorial wall. 40,000 names were carved into black stone, each letter filled with gold. Every human who had died in the betrayal was remembered here. Soldiers and doctors, engineers and cooks, young officers serving their first mission, and old veterans who had survived dozens of battles. Visitors came from across the galaxy. Humans who had lost family members. Aliens who wanted to understand what had happened. Children born after the betrayal, who only knew the story from history lessons. Yunsik greeted them all. He told stories about the dead. He described the battle in simple words that anyone could understand. He never let anyone forget. They died believing help would come, he said to every visitor. They fought until the very end. That is what it means to be human. We do not give up. We do not break. Even when the universe abandons us, we stand. Captain Non Jiong now commanded the Resolute Dawn II, the spiritual successor to Captain Yoon Hana's original ship. She led a defense squadron that patrolled the borders of Alliance space. The enemies were different now. Pirates and outlaws instead of invading empires. But the mission was the same. Protect the innocent. Defend the weak. Never abandon anyone to their fate. On the first anniversary of the Stellar Alliance, Ambassador Bei Jisu addressed the assembly. She had been chosen as humanity's permanent representative, a position she had never wanted but could not refuse. 7 years ago, I stood in this very hall and begged for help, she said. I was ignored. I was told that human lives were worthless. I was shown the true nature of the old order. She paused and looked at the faces around her. Human and alien, old enemies and new friends, all watching her with respect and attention. Today, I stand here again. But everything has changed. We have built something the old council never understood. Not just an alliance of convenience, but a family of equals. Not just a treaty on paper, but a promise written in the hearts of every member. She took a deep breath and spoke her final words with all the conviction she had left. They called us expendable. They thought we would break. They forgot one thing about humanity. We do not break. We do not forget. And when we rise from the ashes, we rise together. The assembly erupted in applause. Humans clapped alongside aliens. Former enemies cheered with new allies. Somewhere in the crowd, Admiral Park Dawn watched with tears in his eyes. The stars that had witnessed humanity's greatest betrayal now witnessed its greatest triumph. Not the triumph of revenge, but the triumph of hope. Not the victory of destruction, but the victory of creation. Earth's fleet had arrived heralding devastation. But in the end, they brought something more powerful than weapons. They brought a new dawn.